Hello and welcome to this video on why chocolate is bad for your dog. It is generally widely accepted that chocolate is bad for dogs. So much so that it even finds its way in advertisements for biscuits.
Mom said chocolate is good for dogs, but you can have the rest of my mouth.
But why is chocolate okay for children to consume, but not a dog? The first and simplest reason is that chocolate contains cocoa. Cocoa is the thing that provides flavor and substance. This is then mixed with milk solids, sugar, and other material. What is important about cocoa is that it contains a number of different materials that are what lead to its flavor and other effects. Notably, threombromine and caffeine, two very similar molecules, but both incredibly toxic to dogs. Structurally, the two can be almost entirely overlapped. They also belong to a much larger group of chemicals called Methylxanthines. The reason we need to talk about these two collectively is that, as a wider group, let's say, Methylxanthines are dangerous to animals because they interact with different receptors in the nervous system. Primarily, we are talking about adenosine receptors. These are what cause you to feel groggy and sleepy over time. They become saturated by different molecules that bind to them. Caffeine, for instance, binds to these receptors, prevents their activation, and means you don't feel as tired for longer. This is why methylxanthines, as a much wider family of chemicals, have an effect as a stimulant. The amount of theobromine and caffeine in the chocolate and then cocoa will vary drastically between what it is you're consuming. Your milk chocolate has a much lower concentration of cocoa versus darker chocolate and cocoa powder. This leads to a dose response, that is, how much cocoa is in the chocolate product that's being consumed, how quickly it will lead to negative side effects, and to a certain extent, how severe those side effects are. The first signs that a dog will have consumed chocolate and is experiencing these negative side effects is something like vomiting or diarrhea. That's because the dog's body is trying to get rid of this poison. Increased thirst has a similar effect. It attempts to dilute out the effect. Urination occurs as the dog's body attempts to remove it from circulation. In very low levels of poisoning, this may be all that is experienced. As you move along the scale of severity, you find that symptoms can include tremors, seizure, and heart failure, all signs of neurological problems. Looking at threombromine in particular, it only takes 20 milligrams for every kilogram of your dog's weight to begin poisoning. The more severe end of symptoms are demonstrated at 40 milligrams a kilogram, a milligram being 1/1000th of a gram. Seizures begin at 60 milligrams a kilogram. A lethal dose is considered anywhere as little as 100 milligrams per kilogram of body weight, and can be as high as 200 milligrams a kilogram of body weight, although the variation is a little hazy. The reason this works is, as we mentioned, largely the interaction between these molecules and the nervous system. The inhibition of not only the receptors, but the neurons themselves. In a way, it's similar to how methanol can lead to blindness. And as with something like methanol and other drugs for that matter, the size and weight of whoever's consuming it can have a significant effect on the dose required. In this case, larger dogs can generally be thought to be safer at lower doses compared to a smaller dog. The treatment for this is fairly direct, and will vary a little bit based on the amount of chocolate consumed and type. If it's a low cocoa containing, and therefore low threombromine or caffeine containing chocolate, nothing may need to be done other than monitoring and ensuring the animal has adequate access to water. As you get towards the high end, it may be necessary initially to induce vomiting, And if that doesn't work, to begin other measures, such as giving the animal activated charcoal. This prevents some of the absorption of the chemicals into their body. In more extreme cases, you may need to provide supplemental therapies, something like intravenous fluids. This helps to first dilute the amount of methylxanthines in circulation, and further flush them out by increasing secretion from the kidneys. That's going to help with stabilization, but long term, the amount of chocolate will indicate what needs to be done. Some medication may need to be given to reduce the possible risk to the animal of seizures or damage from seizures by sedating them. Long term, there's unlikely to be the kind of clinical side effects you might see with some other toxicities, but still, any animal that consumes it is likely to have a very bad time. And this is why they need to be monitored for an extended period. This is why the Oreo ad at least had some of its information accurate, although it depends very much on just how much cocoa there is in those biscuits.
Mom said chocolate isn't good for dogs, but you can have the rest of my mouth.
Thank you for watching this video. If you've found this interesting, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please post any comments, questions, or suggestions that you have below.